At exactly 4:32 a.m., Tehran's sky lit up like hell had opened its gates. Israeli warplanes pierced the silence, dropping bunker-buster bombs on Iran's nuclear heart. Natanz, Isfahan, Fordow, turning fortified labs into fire and ash. Within minutes, the region was ablaze. Iran launched over 200 missiles toward Tel Aviv and Haifa. Sirens howled. Families fled underground. But the destruction didn't stop there. It triggered a chain reaction no one could control. From Moscow to Beijing, from Pyongyang to Caracas, alliances activated in silence. Radars powered on. Cargo planes vanished from satellite view. Fleets moved into position. This isn't just Israel versus Iran anymore. This is a global chessboard in motion. What happens when nuclear-capable nations like Pakistan or North Korea step out of the shadows? Will the next missile end a city or start a world war? We're about to uncover the alliances, secrets, and strategies that the headlines won't tell you. This isn't just conflict, it's a countdown, and it's already ticking. At 4:32 a.m. local time on June 13, 2025, the skies over Tehran ignited like a second sunrise. Blinding flashes tore through the night as bunker-buster bombs rained down on Iran's most fortified nuclear sites, Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. Minutes later, plumes of smoke rose from incinerated IRGC missile bases near Kermanshah, painting a new silhouette of destruction across Iran's strategic map. Officially, Israel did not claim responsibility. Unofficially, the operation was described by Western analysts as a covert decapitation strike, designed to cripple Iran's nuclear development before it crossed an irreversible threshold. The U.S., while silent, was suspected to have provided satellite reconnaissance and airspace clearance, particularly via assets in Iraq and the Persian Gulf. But within 40 minutes, Iran's response made it clear. This was no one-sided ambush. Over 200 ballistic and cruise missiles, including Fateh 313 and Shahed 136 drones, were launched toward Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Dimona. Sirens screamed through Israeli cities as the Iron Dome and David's Sling missile defense systems lit the sky like a grim fireworks show. Global headlines erupted. All-out war erupts in Middle East. Red lines breached. Iran-Israel conflict turns volcanic. Yet, buried beneath the urgency of war reportage was a quieter, more dangerous shift. This was not merely a bilateral war. Behind Iran, a silent axis had stirred. Russia, China, Pakistan, North Korea, and Venezuela. Nations not firing missiles directly, but strategically moving pieces on the chessboard. Some acted through logistics and intelligence. Others issued nuclear threats or opened ports. Together, they blurred the lines between ally and adversary, proxy and principal. What began in Tehran may have lit the first match, but the kindling spans continents. Now, the world faces a choice: diplomacy or detonation. And the countdown has already begun. In the frosted halls of the Kremlin in January 2025, a 20-year comprehensive strategic partnership was inked between Russia and Iran. An agreement layered in ambiguity, but rich with implications. Publicly, it promised military-industrial cooperation, intelligence exchange, and joint development of surveillance and drone technologies. Notably absent, however, was a mutual defense clause, a deliberate omission, allowing Moscow flexibility without formal obligation to enter open conflict on Tehran's behalf. Nonetheless, the nature of the alliance is clear in practice. President Vladimir Putin, in a rare press appearance, called the Israeli-US airstrikes on Iran's nuclear sites a dangerous escalation of an already fragile region, and condemned them as unprovoked acts of destabilization. Yet, true to Russia's long-game doctrine, no Russian soldier crossed a border, nor did a formal declaration follow. Instead, Russia moved with its hallmark subtlety, through infrastructure and invisibility. In early 2025, Moscow began deploying advanced radar and early warning systems in southern Lebanon and portions of Gaza. enabling Tehran to detect low-flying Israeli assets before they approached Iranian airspace. These radar networks were integrated with Russia's GLONASS satellite array, feeding precision data to Iran's Shahed-129 and Shahed-149 drones. Once rudimentary suicide drones, they were now surgically accurate battlefield weapons capable of swarming Israeli air bases and interceptors with unprecedented accuracy. Ironically, the same Shahed drones had once aided Russia in its Ukraine campaign under the rebranded name Iran 2. But as the war dragged on, Russia grew less dependent on Iranian exports. It began building its own drone production facility in Yelabuga, Tatarstan, with the intent of reverse engineering Iranian designs. While this shift signaled a potential decoupling, Russia continued to rely on Iranian logistical corridors and parts, sustaining a quiet but critical tech flow. Thus, Moscow emerges as the silent architect, not firing missiles, but orchestrating the technical backbone of Tehran's defense. In the modern battlefield, power no longer lies solely in bombs dropped, but in data shared, radars aligned, and alliances that breathe without speaking. On June 14, 2025, in a televised interview that shocked diplomats worldwide, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Asif declared that Iran has the right to defend itself by all means necessary, and warned that if Israel were to use nuclear weapons, Pakistan will not remain silent. The comment, aired on PTV News and picked up globally, was widely interpreted as a thinly veiled threat. Pakistan might retaliate with its own nuclear arsenal. The rhetoric sent tremors through diplomatic circles. For decades, Pakistan's nuclear doctrine had been tightly framed as India-centric, designed to deter its historic rival to the east. Now, for the first time, a senior official had expanded its nuclear umbrella, linking it to a Middle Eastern conflict. Was Islamabad signaling a nuclear alliance with Iran, or bluffing in the theater of deterrence? Within 24 hours, the Prime Minister's office, along with Deputy PM Ishaq Dar and UN Ambassador Asim Iftikhar Ahmad, scrambled to contain the damage. They emphasized that Pakistan's nuclear posture remains regionally focused, reiterating that Pakistan does not seek involvement in Middle Eastern hostilities. But by then, the message had landed, and not just in Jerusalem or Washington. Intelligence analysts noted that Pakistan, in quiet coordination with China, is preparing for ICBM testing, potentially expanding its strike radius to include the Levant and beyond. Satellite imagery of Shaheen-3 platforms and upgraded missile silos in Balochistan hint at intentions that stretch well beyond defensive posturing. This contradiction, threatening nuclear reprisal while pleading strategic neutrality, exposes the tightrope Islamabad walks between Islamic solidarity with Iran, dependence on Gulf investments, and fear of Western sanctions. In the fog of war, Pakistan has become the loudest whisper, a power both unpredictable and indispensable. While missiles roared over Tel Aviv and Tehran burned beneath bunker busters, Beijing remained silent. But silence, in geopolitics, can be thunderous. On June 15th, satellite imagery released by Jane's Defense Weekly revealed an unmarked Y-20 cargo aircraft, a Chinese military transport, landing at an airbase outside Shiraz, Iran. The plane bore no visible insignia, its cargo manifest undisclosed. No media statement followed, no public confirmation from Beijing. But to defense analysts, the message was unmistakable. China had arrived, but not to be seen. Experts speculate the cargo may have included electronic warfare systems, anti-jamming radars, or components for Iran's drone and air defense infrastructure, technologies that would offer Iran critical resilience under sustained Israeli strikes. In contrast to loud declarations from other capitals, China left breadcrumbs, not footprints. The next day, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning issued a rare condemnation of Israel, stating that any attack on sovereign nuclear infrastructure violates international norms, and warning that red lines had been crossed. The phrase Hongjian in Chinese statecraft is not casually used. It signified that Beijing recognized Tehran's right to retaliate. This strategic duality, covert logistical aid paired with crisp diplomatic rebuke, exemplifies China's evolving doctrine of asymmetric influence. While Washington postures with aircraft carriers, Beijing builds quiet corridors of capability. While others broadcast coalitions, China whispers support that shifts balance without war declarations. It is a shadow alliance, with no treaties signed, no troops deployed. Yet with every silent shipment, every unmanned drone flight guided by Chinese components, and every line of carefully measured rhetoric, China deepens its influence in the Middle East chessboard, not as a fire starter, but as the hand that guides the flame. And as global fault lines deepen, China's soft power now casts a long strategic shadow, one that stretches from Tehran to the halls of the Pentagon. While missiles light up the Middle Eastern sky, a quieter battle is being waged across the Caribbean Sea and the Andes Mountains, a battle not of bombs, but of ideology and infrastructure. From Caracas, the capital of crisis-hardened Venezuela, came murmurs of unwavering support for Iran. But those whispers have evolved into tangible acts. Alongside Cuba, Nicaragua, and Bolivia, Venezuela has accelerated its covert cooperation with Tehran, not through formal treaties, but through mutual necessity and shared resistance. Joint drone research facilities, disguised as aerospace training centers, have sprung up in Aragua and Zulia. Intelligence intercepts suggest Iranian engineers have been training Latin American technicians in stealth UAV technology capable of evading Western sanctions tracking. Meanwhile, secret port access agreements allow Iranian oil tankers and supply vessels to quietly refuel or reroute through Puerto Cabello and Bluefields, dodging the surveillance of international patrols. These nations form a strategic rearguard, not on the front lines of war, but on the front lines of defiance. Their shared narrative is powerful. This is not about Iran versus Israel. This is about the oppressed versus the oppressors. In their eyes, the war in the Middle East mirrors their own struggle against decades of Western economic domination and regime destabilization. Though they lack nuclear weapons or aircraft carriers, their unified rhetoric carries the weight of resistance. In this new age of conflict, power lies not only in missiles, but in alliances of belief. And sometimes, the loudest explosion comes from a whisper that refuses to be silenced. The global order, long held in delicate balance, is fracturing before our eyes. What began as an Israeli airstrike and an Iranian missile response has now crystallized into two emerging superpower blocs, a 21st century Cold War made hot. On one side, Bloc Alpha, a coalition stitched together not by treaties, but by shared resentment of Western domination. Iran, burning and embattled, forms the Axis. Russia supplies military intelligence and stealth logistics. North Korea fuels Iran's missile backbone with technology flowing through shadow channels. China backs economically and diplomatically, shaping the narrative and supplying strategic tech. Pakistan, bold in rhetoric and ambiguous in doctrine, hovers near the nuclear line. Latin America, from Venezuela to Cuba, sustains Iran's economy with ports, oil, and ideological solidarity. On the other side, Bloc Western, a familiar coalition, but one now pushed to act beyond diplomacy. Israel, hardened by war, braces with a fully upgraded Iron Dome, David's Sling, and newly positioned Arrow 4 interceptors. The United States deploys the Fifth Fleet into the eastern Mediterranean, with Tomahawk launchers and F-35s ready on standby. France has scrambled Rafale squadrons from Charles de Gaulle, while the UK activates radar grids in Cyprus and Bahrain. The Gulf states, long silent, quietly allow airspace and fuel logistics, enabling but not committing. Satellite intelligence shows battle groups amassing like thunderclouds. Cyber defense hubs blink in Tel Aviv, Tehran, and Shanghai, as a silent war plays out in code and signal. And now, a singular choice confronts humanity: escalate or negotiate. Should any player cross the nuclear threshold, the Middle East will ignite into a firestorm, and the rest of the world may not remain untouched. Geneva shivers under vetoes. North Korea waits, its warheads silent but primed. Latin America chants from pulpits. China watches without blinking. Could a ceasefire be brokered? Unlikely, but not impossible. Trump's team whispers from a diplomatic backchannel, while UN envoys struggle to draft a resolution before war becomes irreversible. The world holds its breath, not for victory, but for survival. If this unfolding crisis challenges what you've been told, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to explore deeper levels. Thanks for watching till the end. See you next video.